And she said to me, "You're never going to be able to play the guitar. You'll never be good at the guitar."
Wow.
Which, I mean, is a bit of a serious thing to say
That's
to
harsh,
a
yeah.
7, 8-year-old kid. Do you know what I mean? Because I was, we were living above the pub, so I'd hear the band start and I'd sneak out of bed at night and kind of just sit on the stairs just out of view and listen to all this music, listen to the sounds of the pub, and just thinking, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to do that. I want to make music.
What would you say overall is your like main philosophy?
I've been to studios myself, and you're there in a live room, in a big room, and behind the glass you've got 2 or 3 people, and it's imposing, and it's daunting for people who maybe haven't been into studios before. They've got all this music inside them, but the thought of going to a big studio somewhere is kind of puts them off getting the music recorded, finding what is the right match for a person, rather than me just coming in and going, this is me as a producer. This is my, as I say, my ego coming into this, and this is the way I think it should sound. It's not my song. I'm not the artist, and I'm not the person who needs to carry that for the rest of their, the life of that song. You can't rest on your laurels. And we'd have times that we'd be sat there for 2 hours kind of going, right then, well, nothing's coming. Yeah. And there's a number of times that I've thought, maybe this is the day. Maybe this is the one where I can't pull it off.
Right, hello, welcome to the One More Songcast. It's been a while since I've done this, to be fair. It's been Lee that's been hosting recently, so it's nice to be back. And we've got another producer on today. I'm sure a lot of people will know who he is. It's Nick. Is it Sagar?
Sagar.
Yeah. I didn't want to get that wrong.
Yeah.
But obviously we've spoke over the years and stuff, and it's nice to finally meet you. So welcome to the podcast.
Nice to be here as well.
Yeah, happy days. How's things going generally?
Great, yeah, crazy busy. Literally just back from Tokyo on Monday night when I was doing a project there for a week. And trying to cram a load of stuff in before going to Nashville 2 weeks on Friday.
Right, okay.
So yeah, it's been crazy. It's crazy busy. I mean, it's a fantastic problem to have, is to be really, really busy. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so much great music. It's it's brilliant.
So what were you doing in Tokyo then?
So I was doing a theatre piece, because the other side of my life, and I'm sure we'll get into this, pre to the studio really taking off, was as a theatre sound designer. And that was kind of like the main day job as well as music. And then COVID happened and then everything changed. But as a kind of theatre sound designer, I'm there to create the soundscapes, quite often create the music for shows. And the show we were doing in Tokyo was a one-woman show with a very famous French actress. I'd never heard of her, but until we did the show, Isabelle Huppert. Did 4 shows in Tokyo, full houses, brilliant. It was just a cracking week. I've never been to Japan before, so so kind of soaking up that culture. I don't know if anyone's been.
I've not actually. I'd always like to. Yeah,
utterly overwhelming. I mean, it's just full on. All the time, massive city. But yeah, really, really, really good to be there. And just soaking it all up.
Brilliant.
Soaking up the culture.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Do you get a lot of time outside work over there? Because like sometimes you go over to do the work, people go, they go in there and literally between work and the hotel room.
There is a lot of that. I mean, unfortunately, I got like half a day, because what they tend to do, and particularly with sound, because you get off a plane and your ears don't work. Do you know what I mean? And so I can't go straight into the venue straight afterwards. They have to give me a day off to be able to kind of reacclimatise. So that's kind of my only day when, what I tend to do is I kind of leave the hotel and then go, right, I never plan it. I never kind of figure out, there's people who look through books and go, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Shibuya Crossing was the only one, which is if you see anything about Tokyo, there's a famous crossroads, which is like 4-sided zebra crossings all over the place, and it's full on at rush hour. I mean, massive at rush hour. So I thought, I've got to go and see that, because it's kind of like a tick box thing to do. And I went to a Shinto temple in the middle of a park, which was by complete contrast to the rest of Tokyo. But that was kind of it then. But one of the things that I'm really lucky to travel a hell of a lot. But one of the things I like to do is just be in it like you're a native. Just be in it, go to a bar, go to a place and grab a sandwich or whatever, rather than doing the kind of tourist thing. I think you're able to kind of soak up a town or a city or whatever, a country, much more just by doing it and not going, right, I've got this list of things I've got to do. Do you know what I mean? Then you're just a tourist. You know, you might as well do that on your holiday. But so I got a bit of time. I got about a day and a half. But then, of course, you finish work and then you go and find a bar. And we found a fantastic little bar. Only 7 seats in this place. So how he makes a living, I don't know. But it was 7 seats on this counter. I mean, probably not much bigger than this place. Big counter, bottles of whiskey, bottles of rum, and a vinyl deck, and just a load of records from the 70s and 80s. And he just basically says, what do you want to play? Dark Side of the Moon, side 2, please. Thank you very much. Drinking Japanese whiskey and listening to Dark Side of the Moon in this kind of little smoky place in Tokyo. You just think, living the dream.
And you wouldn't get that, would you, if you were just on a standard holiday?
Yeah, absolutely. You wouldn't get that. You know, it was a tiny little place, and it just happened to be opposite the hotel, and it's the kind of place that you'd walk past and you wouldn't even notice.
Yeah.
But you just kind of go down these little steps, and so friendly and, you know, so welcoming and stuff. It was just, it was awesome. So I get in a lot of places, I get a chance to kind of wander around. I kind of tend to do what I call my big walk. If I get the day off, I'll just head in a direction and just walk and see what happens.
See what happens, yeah.
And that's kind of a way just to soak it all up. And you suddenly go, oh, right, shit, I've seen that on TV and I've seen that. You know, and it's, I love it. I love it for that.
No, I'm the same. I lived in America for 2 years on a scholarship. And
whereabouts were you?
I was in Louisiana.
Okay.
Weirdly, and like you say, I got friends with someone and had a full Thanksgiving at someone's house. And you'd never get that if you just went on a standard. Yeah, it was brilliant. But you'd never get that, would you?
No,
if
you
were just on a holiday, you know, type thing.
And I guess Louisiana is kind of like, you know, it's really deep south, and you get an entirely different culture. You wouldn't normally get that on holiday because you'd go to New York or you'd go to LA or you'd go wherever, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So did you have a musical beginning then?
Yeah, I grew up in a pub in Tarleton, so between Southport and Preston. Okay. I grew up in a pub in the kind of 70s, right, end of the 60s, into the 70s, and there was kind of a regular band that come, you know, and do all the kind of classic covers from the 50s, 60s and 70s. And I used to sneak out of bed at night because I was, you know, we were living above the pub, so I'd hear the band start and I'd sneak out of bed at night and kind of just sit on the stairs just out of view and listen to all this music, listen to the sounds of the pub. It's not surprising that I've gone into pubs and music. But anyway, so I'd sit there and just kind of listen to all these sounds coming up this staircase, and just thinking, that's what I want to do. Yeah. I want to do that. I want to make music. So I ended up getting given a guitar at kind of the age of 7, and I started doing guitar lessons at primary school. But mine was a steel strung guitar, and everyone else was playing nylon strung guitars. So I don't think the guitar teacher really knew how to deal with that, you know, because I was making this racket, you know, on steel strung guitar, and everyone else is going bling, 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 bling like this. And she said to me, "You're never going to be able to play the guitar. You'll never be good at the guitar." Wow. Which, I mean, it's a bit of a serious thing to say to a 7, 8-year-old kid, you know what I mean? So I kind of put the guitar away a bit until a very fateful day when a mate of mine, it was about age 11, and he called me up and he said, "I've just found these 2 records in Mum and Dad's record collection. One's called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and the other one's called Let It Be. You need to get over here and have a listen to these." Now, so I kind of cycled a mile over to my mate's house, put these on, and that was kind of that. I mean, Sgt. Pepper's, to start, was a mind-blowing moment when you're listening to a world in sound. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think it was that moment that I went, that's what I want to do. I want to do that stuff.
And did you know that was production at that point? Or
no, I had no idea. I just knew that it wasn't like anything else I'd heard. You know, you've got the sound of, you know, dogs barking and hounds, and you've got all these kind of weird sitars, which I didn't even know what sitar was at the time. But this whole new kind of world of sound. And it just, you know, it made me think, I want to do that. That's what I, you know, whether it felt like it was an expression or whatever. So my mate said, right, well, let's become musicians then. Great, okay. So we started miming with tennis rackets in his front room to early Beatles songs. I mean, still stood up. We were doing gigs and everything in his front room. Do you know what I mean? With these tennis rackets, until one of us had this, you know, the brilliant idea of, why don't we actually learn to play the guitar? You know, why don't we get some guitars? And well, I've got a guitar. I'll do that. So you learn to play 2 or 3 chords, and you kind of going along with that. And because there weren't any like music books or, you know, there's no internet, there was no YouTube to learn it, you kind of had to by ear go, okay, I think that's a G and I think that's an E, and you know, and so I have to pick out all these Beatles songs from it. So consequently, that gave me a really good ear now. So if someone comes in with a song, I can go, okay, yeah, well, that's an E minor and that's an A minor and that's a, you know, and you can kind of do it quickly. And that came from those days of having to pick up, you know, having to be inventive and pick it up. So I did my first gig at 12 years old at high school, you know, and and people were screaming. I mean, I think they were doing it ironically. I don't think they were doing it because we were the next Beatles. I think they were doing it ironically. But so from that point on, 12 years old, I was playing in bands and, you know, and living the music dream in a lot of ways, you know, doing gigs at, you know, local village halls once every couple of weeks and stuff. Which, you know, looking back on it now as a 12-year-old, it was quite, you know, it was quite a big deal. But my dad also ran a disco. So it meant we had a massive PA and flashing lights and oil lamps and things that, you know, I mean, it must have looked kind of psychedelic-y, trippy, and, you know, these little 12, 13-year-olds doing this, but, you know, with hindsight. But again, it was fun. We were making it up as we went along, you know. And I think that's kind of also where my sound engineering stuff came from, because I was the only bugger who could be bothered to try and fix a guitar lead. You know, and because my dad had built his disco and, you know, and all that, he gave me an amp and I got my first electric shock trying to fix that amp. But I think that's where I got into the side, not only the creative kind of playing side, but, actually, I can use a pair of headphones as a microphone and do this. And I got my first 4-track. And then that was a mind-blowing moment when you sit there and think, I can do this. And right. And now I can do a track with a vocal on it. And now I can bounce those down together and, you know, and create something else. And again, create a world out of music and out of sounds.
Do you think with the sort of, they call it the Pro Tools generation now, don't they? Even though, like, there's obviously more than Pro Tools out there now. Do you think a little bit of that element of you had to learn by ear, so you had no choice? Do you think that sort of element has gone a little bit in the way?
I think invention can come from necessity, but also by having massive possibility as well. I think we had to be inventive. When you've only got 4 tracks, you've got to be really inventive. You've got to make decisions ahead of time a lot of the time, and commit to tape, you know, but that was part of it. Now, you know, we could put 400 tracks on if we wanted to, but because of that endless possibility, partly it means that we don't make decisions earlier on, we don't commit to it earlier on, so there's more to do in post. But also I think it means if you want a track that's just you going up and down your garden gate with a stick, you can do that. Do you know what I mean? If you think that's going to add something, a texture or quality or something like that, you know, and you want 15 tracks of vocals in a Billie Eilish style, you can do that. When you only had 24 tracks or 16 tracks, you couldn't do that as easily. So I think the Pro Tools generation, has meant that we have a lot more possibility to be infinitely creative. Whether we'd have got just as good a result if we hadn't had that, I guess we'll never know now. But it's nice to have it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think a lot of people that said that, you know, mixing to tape, it was a lot harder then, and you had to get it right in the first take. You got things like Melodyne and auto-tune now. Wouldn't have had that then. You had to be in tune. So
totally. But I wonder about this a lot, you see, because we didn't have Melodyne, we didn't have auto-tune, and you could say, well, they were better singers then, but they weren't. But our ears weren't as used to things being absolutely tuned and quantized within an inch of its life. It's just that we as listeners have kind of got used to that pristine level of tuning. I think if you had the Beatles or you had Sinatra or someone like that singing now, we'd be like sitting there going, oh, you know what, there's just a little bit sharp there, mate. Whereas now we just jump in the box and tune it. You know,
that innocence has gone in a way.
But I think that's right. I mean, I'm not one of those kind of Luddites that sits there and, you know, and says all the best music was made in the kind of 60s and 70s, and therefore, you know, we should kind of go back to that. Even though I do run an analog console, that's mainly because that's the way that I work best, work the fastest, and particularly when you're recording drums and stuff. But, you know, what Pro Tools and what, you know, Logic and all those things have allowed people to do is be creative in their bedrooms, in a set of headphones, and just go, right, I'm going to create a world in sound. I'm going to express my story and my, you know, with what I've got. And some of the stuff that people are creating is just phenomenal. You couldn't have done that with a 4-track and, you know, and an acoustic. No. So it's fantastic that that's there. You know, I mean, I am that hybrid world of the two, trying to use each of them for the best that they can be used for. So the digital side, because you've got endless possibilities, and endless editability, but the analog side, because it just is warm and fuzzy. And I think as human beings, that's a way more natural way for us to hear things. You know, I went all the way through the 80s, hearing everything get really plasticized and, you know, become more and more clinical. And you kind of go, yeah, well, it's nice, but it's a bit soulless. And so I don't think it's any surprise now that people are getting back into valves and vinyl and everything, because I think there's something warm and fuzzy about it.
It was interesting, actually. Millicent, who came on last week, said that I think it was with I don't think she was particularly saying it was a producer, but she was saying basically a lot of her songs were overproduced, and she wanted to go. I think that's why she'd gone to you. And she was worried that what you call it, Spotify sound or whatever would sound too different to her live sound. Is that sort of a challenge as well?
Yeah,
because you have got so much scope now, haven't you, to put endless tracks down, but sometimes it can sort of get a bit too much.
I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what tools you've got. It's about how you use those tools, and ultimately, all the tools make no sense, and they're no use at all without the song, without the artist. So it's the job of a music producer to use those tools to the best ability to suit whatever that artist wants to say, whoever they are, their style, their story, their journey. And I think with Millie particularly, it's all there. I mean, with Millie, it's a given. You don't have to do much with it, because she is exactly what you see in her music. She doesn't need bells and whistles and everything. All we do is just serve the song and serve Millie, in that. And I think that is the role of a producer, is to be able to be sensitive enough to an artist to see, first of all, what they're bringing to the room, what they're bringing into the studio, how sure they are of it. Some people come in with an absolute idea of what they want to achieve. They'll have it all mapped out, and that's great. And we'll do that. And there's a little bit of flexibility in here, there, and everywhere. But some people will come in and go, "This is my song. What do we do with it?"
Yeah.
And then it's my job to go, because I could think, oh, we could turn it into this, we could turn it into that. But that's my ego. That's my taste and style. Whatever's right for the artist is something you've kind of got to find through conversation. And always, if it's a new artist, we spend the first hour having a chat, so that we kind of know each other, and we get to know each other and what our likes and dislikes are, what our influences are, who we are as people. And then I get a much clearer idea as a producer, the best way that I can support that person, and that artist. Because sometimes it is literally just supporting them to be able to get out their idea, and they've got the fully formed idea, or it's supporting them to go, I'd like to be able to say in this kind of style and, whatever. And with my experience, I can go, why don't we try a bit of that? Or why don't we, have a bit of piano on this, or do something along those lines. And that usually sparks another idea. And then it becomes this to and fro of ideas. And they say that, a studio can be an instrument as well. And I think that's very true with some of the artists. But yeah, it is about that sensitivity and finding what is the right match for a person, rather than me just coming in and going, this is me as a producer. This is my, as I say, my ego coming into this, and this is the way I think it should sound. It's not my song. I'm not the artist, and I'm not the person who needs to carry that for the rest of their, the life of that song.
Yeah, I think a lot of producers have different philosophies, don't they? So some will be hell-bent on radio play and it's sounding current. Yeah. Some will literally just be like, what do you want to record, and just get down. What would you say overall is your main philosophy, with your producing?
It is always the artist. It's
so you're not necessarily thinking, oh, I know what will get them on the radio or get them in
I don't know if there's such a thing anymore.
No.
I think it's so broad now. What will get you on the radio is knowing the right people to get you on the radio. If you look at the broad spectrum of music that's on the radio now, it's enormous. It's impossible to say. And some things you think will get onto the radio don't make it, because they've not had the push, they've not had the backing, but other things, ultimately, I think for any artist, you've just got to write the best song you can write from, as part of yourself, as authentically as possible, unless you want to do, just straight pop and you're just doing it for that reason, which is also, good enough in itself. But I think a good song will stand up for itself.
No, yeah.
And I think that if that song can move people or touch people in some way, or you just make them dance or do whatever, it's just got as much chance of getting on the radio. So why try and preempt what you think someone else is going to want, just because you'll never be able to tell. I think if someone could tell that, then, well, maybe there are people who can do that, and that's why they're multimillionaires in the music business. But I think it's way more important just to do what is right and what feels right for you. Because at the end of the day, if you get on the radio, that's great. You make some money out of it and you do whatever. But if you think the song's a bit crap and you've kind of just done it for that, you've kind of got to live with that.
And then if it doesn't make it on radio,
and then when it doesn't make it on radio, it's part of your portfolio, and you're going to sit there going, well, it's not really what I would have done anyway, but I just, I ended up doing it forget that. Just, make music that you are going to want to listen to in 20 years' time, 30 years' time. Because if you want to listen to it in 20 years' time, you can guarantee that other people will want to be able to listen to it as well. And it won't just be a Birdie song or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. I think it was Matt Hall that said about something similar. He said this producer had pushed radio play for him, and it came out sounding like McFly, which is not what he wanted.
Exactly.
And it just ruined it for him, really.
The other thing about that is that, trying to work to a formula, by very nature of that, it means that's already been done. Do you know what I mean? There already is a sound that is that sound, because it's already on the radio. So, and chances are it's been done, not better, but it's been done with more financial backing, and it's been, it's going to get pushed more. So the chances are it's always going to be higher than you in the charts, and it's always going to be pushed more. So what's the point of doing that? Do something that is you and different and stuff, and then you might be the next thing that is played on the radio.
Yeah. I think the best producers will always have a good balance of the two. Have you ever had someone that's come in with something, they're like, all right, I want it to sound like this, and they've completely overcomplicated it, and then you've had to guide them
100%.
Towards...
Yeah. I mean, I had an artist a couple of years ago, and she was brilliant, but she massively overproduced stuff, which a lot of kind of people who self-produce do tend to do. So one of my jobs was to go, I can see where the market is. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make some space in it. We're going to pull some bits out, keep absolutely the vibe and the feeling of it, but we're just going to make it so that it doesn't feel like this cacophony of sound, and that it's got some shape and, and all that. So that's also part of the job of the producer, is knowing where the artist wants to go, where they want to pitch it. As I say, not going, you need to change everything if you want to pitch for Radio 1, but kind of going, if that's really the market you want to go for, then I suggest you do X, Y, and Z, or you kind of do it in that, but still keep it absolutely authentic to yourself. Even if it's a throwaway song, still keep it authentic, because I think we as listeners get that. We know if someone's faking it. We know if someone's just doing it to pay the mortgage. Yeah. But if it's something that has come from someone's soul, if you like, we know it because it touches ours as well at the same time. And that can be a dance, just a fun dance track, as much as it is about, a heartfelt story of your life.
Absolutely. I would really like to sort of rewind a little bit. So obviously you've gone from starting off in live theatre sound. So how did you sort of make that transition into production, and also how did 3507 come about as well?
So I was doing bits of stuff. Basically, we moved back to Claire, my partner, and I, who's also kind of admin at the studio. We moved back from London just over 20 years ago, and bought a house. I mean, the long story short of it is that she'd literally just given birth the day before. We were looking for a house. I saw it in the estate agent's window, and had to phone her and said, do you mind if I put an offer on a house that you've never seen? And she'd literally given birth the day before. Do you know what I mean? She's lying there. So she said, what's it like? I said, well, it needs a lot of work. And the penny dropped. She said, there's a place for a studio, isn't there? I said, don't think of it as a studio. Think of it as a guest wing, but with a lot of gear in it, right? So to this day, there is still a futon up against the wall masquerading as a sound baffle. So that's paying homage to that. So basically, we bought the house, and so the studio was there mainly for kind of me to do sound design and composition projects and little projects with bands and with artists, but purely on, if I met someone and I thought, that's interesting, let's, and do it for fun. Anyway, then cut to 2020, and I was rehearsing in London for a theatre show. And Boris Johnson, in his infinite wisdom, said, we suggest that people don't go to restaurants and go to theatre. So the producer said, well, we're screwed then, aren't we? Let's kind of, everyone go home. We thought it was going to be a month off, to start with, a month off. So I walked into the studio and thought, well, I'm never going to get a month off again. I'm so busy. I've got a diary that's backed up for 2 years. I'm going to use this month and I'm going to do some work in the studio, blah, blah. Anyway, as we all know, a month turned into 3 months and then turned into 6 months and blah, blah. So when it got to the 3-month mark, I thought, right, I'm going to gut the place. I'm going to rewire it all, redo it all, because studios could stay open through COVID. Yeah. You couldn't put 400 people into a football stadium, but you could put 4 sweaty blokes into a recording studio. So go figure.
If they're in your bubble.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we all had to wear masks and do that. And the number of times that people start a vocal take and go, and I was sterilising things and I had to put proper airflow in and all my strings were going rusty because I'm sterilising them every day. And, but anyway, it kept me busy. It kept me creative. A lot of people were coming out of the woodwork with musically because they had time on their hands.
Yeah.
And so that's when 3507 kind of opened fully commercially, July 2020, with an Christian Afrobeat duo, which was, not the genre I was necessarily thought I'd ever get into, but infectiously energetic and loved it. A guy called AKP and T-Pop, if you've ever come across them.
Have you just done work with them recently as well? Yeah.
Yeah, with T-Pop particularly. And it's just infectious. You can't help but smile and laugh and just move when they're in the studio. They come with such energy. But then obviously it started relatively slowly, but a lot quicker than I was expecting. And more people were coming out of the woodwork and more people were coming. And what was great, and more people were coming back, so they kind of got a taste for it. Yeah. A lot of people who'd never been into a studio before. And the real kind of ethos of starting the studio was that I've been to studios myself, and you're there in a live room, in a big room, and behind the glass you've got 2 or 3 people, and it's imposing, and it's daunting for people who maybe haven't been into studios before. They've got all this music inside them, but the thought of going to a big studio somewhere is kind of puts them off getting the music recorded. So one of the kind of big ethoses of the studio is to create that kind of relaxed, creative, supportive environment where first-timers can come and go, well, I've got this little song, I want to get it recorded, whether they want to put it out or whether they want it for legacy for their kids when they've gone or whatever it happened to be. And it just meant that we were getting more and more people back. And obviously we've got, we've had signed artists and we have artists that regular. I mean, Just George, who I think has been as well. She was an absolute regular. We've done about eight songs together, I think, collabed on 8 songs. Maybe even more, including some techno. I'm not quite sure I got talked into that. Even more surprising, the Christian Afrobeat. But so kind of the studio came out of that, and and hopefully it's a place that people come back to because they feel supported.
Yeah, I think that was one of my questions. Is I feel like you have a rapport with a lot of people that have never been in the studio before, and like you say, it's just it is very daunting. I only started recording music probably about 1.5 years ago, and I remember that feeling of going into the studio for the first time, and it can be quite horrendous.
I think some people have imposter syndrome. Yeah, I think people go in there and think, oh, shit, I should, I'm not good enough to be in a studio, or I'm not, or whatever. And it's one of the first things I try and say to people is it's just music. It's just making music. If you've got a story to tell or a song to sing or whatever, just sing it. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether anyone likes it or whether it's up there with, we compare ourselves to, the people who are in the charts who, and you look at a song and it's had £1 million on it. Do you know what I mean? It's not 120 quid for a 4 hours, 4 hour session. Do you know what I mean? So don't worry about comparing. Just worry about, or not even worry about, just tell your story. Yeah. Get the song out.
I think you've probably been told this before. I think because I came from the covers, obviously, and it was like, oh, I've got this song that I'm writing, and it's like you're just worried that the producer's going to go, nah, it's shit that. Do you know what I mean? That's the initial worry.
Yeah, I'm trying to think whether I've ever had that situation where anyone's come and have done a song and you just think, no, that's totally shit. Yeah. Because I think if someone doing it honestly and authentically, it can never be shit because it's like someone coming up and telling you a story, something that happened to them yesterday or whatever. Now, it might not be the most exciting story you've ever heard, but it's still a story. It's still something that happened to somebody. So I think it's valid. Now, again, my role as a producer and songwriter and collaborator, sometimes I can say, oh, have you tried maybe just doing that, or maybe repeating that, because that could be really hooky. There's a guy called Lee Richards who comes in, if you know Lee.
We've had him on, yeah.
Yeah, you've had him on, yeah.
Great lad.
It's fantastic. And that again, Lee is such an example of someone who's just raw passion and emotion. I know my job is really just to capture that, maybe, and put a little bit of this and that and the other.
Well, he said that you do basically a live full take, don't you?
Yeah, well, one of his last ones, Breakdown, was literally, it was the practice take.
Yeah,
and I just pressed record, got all the mics that I pressed record, said, go on, let's do one just as a warm up, and it was like at the end of it, we both just looked at each other and went, yeah, that's the one.
Easy.
That's the one. There's no way that's going to get better than that, So, but with Lee, it was because he basically, it's heart on his sleeve stuff. He doesn't necessarily think about it as being hooky or not hooky.
Yeah.
So with me, I'll listen to it and go, oh, you could repeat that little bit there. And he's really open to that. Sometimes he'll say, no, I can't like it the way it is. And that's absolutely fair enough. So again, having that producer's objectivity to it can help when it's purely that raw energy. But as I say, with someone like Lee, it's just about capturing it, just about capturing that rawness and that
Absolutely,
passion.
Yeah. I wish I could say the same for doing it in one take.
I mean, yeah, it's very unlikely. I think I've had one session where I've got everything first take, and it was well defined by song monopoly. Like, the first three of us went on, the drummer went and nailed it, and we got a second take to things just to get samples, and that was it. Bassist went in, nailed it. I was in on rhythm guitar, and when two people have nailed it before you, that's the first time I've been scared in a studio.
But that's red light syndrome, do you know what I mean? Yeah. That's like the pressure's on, because everyone's looking at you going, okay then, come on.
I probably had the easiest bit in the song.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's the easiest bits, I can sit there and I'll be doing a guitar part, and particularly if I've got the artist with me, and I'll be sitting there going, I should be much better at doing this than I've been playing guitar since I was 11 years old. I should be much better than this.
A funny story. I went to Sugar House for the first time for my tune, and they got me to sing a line in a slightly different way. Bearing in mind, I've had this song in my head for about 6 months, a year.
Of course, yeah.
And I just could not change
it's muscle memory you've
Every
got.
time I went to sing it, I was just singing, and they'd be like, no, again. And I just got to the point where I'm not actually going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And I was just like panicking, I had to go outside and take 10 minutes. I eventually got it, I think, by accident, and they sort of captured it. But it can be overwhelming, can't it?
But again, I think that's the role of the producer, it's to be really sensitive to that. There's sometimes when you think, you've got to gauge whether you think someone's capable of doing it, why you want them to do it that way, and whether the means justifies the end. If someone's just pulling their hair out because they can't get a tape because you think it's a good idea, give up on the idea. Just whatever comes naturally is probably more important.
I think we changed the chord, so it had to sound. It had to
sound
like that. So it was
but
I couldn't do it. So
as well. I think I remember that session as well, because there was a bit where it was like, it wasn't done in a nasty way. AD's quite hands-on, so he's like, oh, just tweak that bit there. Then he'd be like, yeah, you've got it. We'd go to do the take, and I was on lead guitar, and it was like the next thing, there was one point, he's done it in a different session with me as well. He just went, no, give it here. And you just feel, oh.
Yeah, I know that. I've done that a few times, and you kind of go, no, I'll say, do you want me to have a go? Or, do you want a break at all? Something like that. But you've got to be sensitive to it,
And I think, you, as an artist, sometimes you do have to, you might think you're right because that's the way it's always been, but the way it's always been isn't always the best way as well.
And that's one of the hardest things, I think, also because I'm a songwriter, because you've been there at the inception of that song, and it's kind of gone around in your head, and you've been singing it to yourself while you're cooking or doing whatever. So you can't imagine it in a different way. And there was something a songwriting mentor said to me a while back, the rewrite is the real write. And that's something as songwriters, we don't often do that readily. We don't, the processes for me are getting it down like a stream of consciousness, and just, and I use placeholders a lot for when I'm writing, because what I don't want to do is be halfway through verse 2 and be stuck on a line and spend 10, 15 minutes trying to get a line. Paul McCartney famously did it with scrambled eggs because he didn't have the word yesterday, so he just put something else in that had the same meter to it. So I do that a lot. I put, I put in placeholders if I can't get anything, and I'll get it all down. Then that's the creative head gone, and then the more logical side of it is, right, let's sit down with this now and go, does every word and every line justify itself? Should it be there, or is there a better way of saying that? And I think that rewrite is a really, really important one to do. Yeah. But it's one that we find difficult as songwriters because we've it's our little baby, it's our little song child. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Personal, isn't it?
Do you know what I mean? And we can't imagine it being done anywhere. And especially then if some other arsehole comes along and goes, have you thought about changing that for a different chord so you don't know how to sing it? do you know what I mean? Yeah. Which I've done. I've been guilty of as well. Yeah.
It can work the other way though, can't it? I did it for my last one. I had about 50 different ways to end this line, and then ended up back at the original one that I'd done. Course. It's you can agonise over it, can't you?
It's, totally. You can think too much about it as well.
That's hard. It's hard to sort of cut it off, isn't it?
I think the one thing that Luke had on his side is that the song was so short and so simple as the acoustic version that it was. You could then extend bits, and it probably just needed more space in the verse. That's probably what they got out of it, and that's the best thing.
Yeah. But it's finding that objectivity to it that can be really hard. And sometimes the simpler the song, the harder it is, because then every single word, has to justify its place. I mean, I'm doing a lot of country at the moment, and that is the epitome of every word has to justify itself. The
weird thing about country, normally you're expecting artists to be metaphorical, but country is literally just right.
Oh yeah, a lot of
I've got this thought, I'm going to say it.
Yeah,
you don't have to think about what the song means.
3 chords and the truth. That's it. That's literally what it is.
But then there's some loads of complicated stuff musically, especially on the guitars and country. It's just like.
But lyrically, I mean, some of the ideas and some of the stories, and the imagery, like you say, the imagery isn't necessarily metaphorical, but some of the imagery is just brilliant. There's a Chesney Kenny song called "There Goes My Life," which is about. It starts off. The first verse is about a young lad who's a university kid who finds out his girlfriend's pregnant. And he just says, "There goes my life. There goes my future, my everything." And you kind of start off, and then it cuts to 5 years later. And his little girl is growing up, and all the pictures are all over the fridge, and she's going upstairs to go to sleep, and he goes, "There goes my life, there goes my future, my everything," and the way that they turn those same lines round, and then the end of it, she's getting in a car to drive off to college, to university, and he's waving her goodbye, saying, "There goes my life, my future, my everything," and that's the really clever thing about country writing is, like you say, it's not metaphorical, but it's very clever the way that they write, but every word has to justify its place in that song.
I wanted to ask you how you developed your ear for EQ and obviously your the production side, and when you decide to draw the line on that as well, because I can imagine again with writing it's similar to production. You could just go over and over.
Oh, trust me, I have.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons we've got a sofa in the studio is so that Claire can fall asleep on it while I'm still mixing.
When do you sort of decide that's done? Yeah.
It's such a tough question. Partly is practical because that particularly if it's your job, the longer you go at it, as much as I want to go at it, it's a law of diminishing returns ultimately. So you learn to become quicker at achieving what you think the final result's going to be. So a lot of my ear was actually done from live work. If someone comes on stage and they're holding a microphone out here, you've got to be really quick at adjusting that, or in theatre you get a lot of people with mics on their heads and lavalier mics on their heads. If you get some sweat in that and suddenly it starts sounding like this, you've got to be really quick, otherwise you've lost a verse of what's being said. So that developed my ear really quickly to go, all right, it's about 2K and it's like that, so I can hear those frequencies.
So you'd EQ out the sweat.
As much as you can until you got on the walkie-talkie and said, as soon as they come off, change that microphone. So you've got to be able to adapt and be really quick at it, because there are no second chance. You can't rewind and go, right, I'll have a listen to that again and tweak. So you get really quick at that. And the old technique of sweeping through, the more you do it, it's the 10,000 hours thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The more you do it, the more you go, oh, well, that's about 10K actually. That's where I'm getting that, where I'm getting sibilants at 7K, or the snare needs a bit more 250 on it, or whatever it is. So it's partly through taste, it's partly through experience, I guess.
Yeah.
But actually, when is a song? I don't know if a song's ever finished. I don't think a mix is ever really finished. I think any producer would always sit there and go, oh, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd done a little bit of something different on that, there. But that's the nature of the beast. You're capturing a moment in time, and that moment in time has to have an end point.
I suppose the two differences between your live stuff and the production stuff, the studio production, is that you're having to make quick decisions, aren't you, live?
Yeah.
Whereas, like you say, there's difficulty of agonising over something in the studio.
I think that that's helped my studio work, because at the end of the day, people are paying for studio time. So the more you can maximise the creative time that artist or that band has in the studio, the better, because they're getting better value for money at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? If I'm spending half an hour EQing a snare drum, they're not getting, in my opinion, they're not getting good value for money. Do you know what I mean? I should be saying, go away, I'm going to stop the meter, and then, come back and I'll restart it for you. I need to be able to do that in 30 seconds. It might not be 100% there for the moment, but I need to get it into a ballpark so that the band or the artist can vibe off what they're hearing back, and then as they're doing another vocal take, I can be tweaking. So I mix a lot as I'm going anyway, because I think the artist plays off that. Plays off hearing a mix develop and grow, and you can hear your part, what's needed and what your part is in it much more. But I think that speed that I got from the live work is really important in the studio work when you're on a budget. You're not on a 3-month studio session. A lot of people go in for 4 hours, and they ideally want to leave with a track at the end of it.
I suppose the one thing you have got in common with the live stuff is it's only as good as the take. Yeah, you can in some ways polish a turd, if you like, for lack of a better phrase, but you're gonna have to spend a shitload of time doing it.
Yeah, exactly. It's having the source right at the beginning. First of all, having a great song. That beats everything. If it's well rehearsed and well performed, that's the second thing. Then, like I said before, technically the only thing I've got to do then is capture it, and at least we've got that essence of it. Anything above that is a bonus. Anything above that is creativity and and production. But ultimately, if it's not a great song and it's not performed well, like you say, you're polishing a turd. It's a little purse sow's ear thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I get you. I think what I've noticed with a lot of producers as well is they have not a specific genre, but a genre that they would usually stick to. So with Sugar House, it's indie artists mainly. That will vary, but how do you find keeping your finger on the pulse, working with so many different genres and artists as well? Do you find yourself sort of out of the studio listening to so much music?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of music. Yeah. Whether that be Spotify and other streaming platforms are available. Don't get me started about Spotify. I listen to a lot of artists. I listen to a lot of music. I'll go and see stuff live, and a lot of stuff that's out of my normal genre as well. Because even though it might not be something that I'd necessarily play at home, I think it's really important to kind of get an idea, because I think all good music has something in common, which is the energy behind it. Whether that be a passionate energy for something really heartfelt or a really full-on energetic industrial energy. I think energy is what it's all about. And I think as producers and musicians and artists and songwriters, we can get so much from that energy and be so inspired by hearing other people. So yeah, listen to a lot of music, but working with a lot of artists. So I work with a lot of artists who are in their kind of 20s. And I've got a music heritage, for want of a better word, that goes back to the late 60s and beyond that, because of the stuff I was listening to when I was a kid, back to the 50s. And I think that some of the most interesting productions and amalgamations are where that 20-something-year-old world comes in and my experience world comes in. So you're creating something that is new and fresh, but it's got a heritage, I guess, for want of a better word, a musical heritage in there. And a lot of it is just feel. I was doing a song with an artist a couple of days ago, and it's almost EDM-y, but with an indie vibe to it as well. Now, I've listened to EDM, but it's not necessarily my style or my genre, but I've listened to enough of it to know how a drop should feel and how the energy should feel of it, and certain elements like how the kick should land, and the kind of snare maybe, or in different flavors and different tastes. But you take that as a kind of a formula, for want of a better word, and then you mix it up with your taste and your style and the artist style and all that, and then you end up with something new.
I mean, there's one live video that I always go back to, or live recording that I always go back to, and Sam Fender's recently done an live album at the O2, and I noticed at the beginning of people watching, it's just him and the guitar at the beginning, and to me the guitar sounds terrible. It's tinny, there's no mids in it, there's no low end. Soon as the rest of the instruments come in, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, of course.
Like, where does anyone doing live sound or production know, if I make that guitar sound slightly shitter on its own,
I suspect
it's weird because it's probably to cut it through the mix, or
I suspect that it probably wasn't intentional like that. I suspect that it was finally EQ'd to how it would sound when the rest of the band came in, and was never really EQ'd for when it was going to be on its own. And that if it was me doing that, I'm not saying that the Sam Fender's front of house engineers, it doesn't know what they're doing. But yeah, if it was me, I'd have that coming in two different channels. And so when it was played on its own, it would have one EQ. And then when the rest of the band comes in, you switch over to the channel and it goes into someone else. The same as I would do if I was doing music production, starts off with an acoustic guitar, but then that acoustic has to fit into the rest of the production, which means you need to take out some of the lows and some of the low mids out of it. So it sits nicely in there. But if you have that naked on its own at the start, it's going to sound exactly like you described it. A bit shit,
Like it's honestly odd. It's mad. Like the stuff. Obviously, that is what you're looking for, the overall leveling. Everything cutting through. It absolutely fascinating.
But if it's got nothing else to cut through, there's no point. What's it cutting through apart from nothing?
I mean, why would? I thought, why would he want it to sound like that? And then all of a sudden, I heard it. I was like, I get it.
Probably sounds different in his ears anyway. So. So, but Sam Fender can make anything sound great anyway. So
unbelievable.
Well, Mercury win, isn't he? He just won the Mercury prize. Yeah.
What I'd be interested to know, because you do work with so many people on so many interesting projects, you talk about artists coming in, or new artists coming in and having that imposter syndrome. Have you ever thought to yourself, shit, I don't know if I can do this?
Every day.
Do you? Yeah.
Every single day.
That's interesting, yeah.
And that's part of what keeps it real, I suppose. But I think the day that I ever think, I've got this, I know exactly what I'm doing, is the day I'll stop doing it. Because you can never know when you're talking, when you've got artists' songs, you're responsible for those artists' songs, or literally they'll come as Just George used to do, with a blank piece of paper, and a lunch, and go, right then, what we're doing today. And you've literally, the world is your oyster. You've got all the possibility. You can't rest on your laurels with that. And we'd have times that we'd be sat there for 2 hours, kind of going, right then, well, nothing's coming. What you've got to do is you've got to trust that sooner or later it will come, with your experience and with your, knowing the person well enough and being relaxed enough around a person, something will come, but you can never be sure, And there's a number of times that I've thought, maybe this is the day. Maybe this is the one where I can't pull it off.
So you've never had that then, where you're just like, I'm sorry, we can't do it?
No, I had it once on a theatre show. I was in Montreal doing a show over there, and I was composer and sound designer for it. And I had a couple of meetings with the director via Zoom and stuff like that, and I kept giving him ideas, and he's going, yeah, well, it's kind of all right, but it's not quite right. Okay, I'll go back and I'll try something else, and blah, blah. Yeah, I like that bit from that. And I'm thinking, oh, shit, I'm not going to... Anyway, I said, well, listen, I'm there next week. I'm in Montreal next week. We'll have a clear idea. So I got over there, first day of rehearsals, and I was trying something. He's going, it's not quite right. And I got back to my hotel room that night and just thought, shit, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one where I can't do it, and I've got to say, I'm sorry, I think you've got the wrong person for the job, and I've got to fly home, And I thought, well, I don't want that to be the way this ends, so I'm just going to go, sod it. I'm going to forget everything else that I've done. I'm just going to respond to what I saw in the theatre today. and I'm going to get myself a bottle of wine and some bread and some cheese, and I'm going to sit here with my keyboard, and I'm just going to bang something out that just comes from a spontaneous reaction. Took it in, played it to me, said, "That's the one. That is the one."
Yeah.
Now, there's no rhyme or reason to that. There's no method to it. There's no theory to it at all. The only theory was me just kind of going, "Fuck it."
I was about to say that.
Do you know what I mean? Just, I've got nothing left to lose here. Just fuck it. That's it. And I think for a lot of people, that's, you know, not that I like necessarily giving advice in that way, but I think it could be, it's been good advice for myself at times, just to go, you know what, just do your best, and, you know, and do whatever you can do, and it will come. Yeah. But every day I've, you know, in a number of scenarios, I'm sitting there going, how the hell did I get here? You know, how did this happen? Yeah.
Do you find it hard to switch off as well then? Because you're so invested in this, and I know what it's like when you come out of the studio and you've got that bloody song stuck in your head. And like you say, just constantly thinking about different ideas, and different projects. Is it hard to?
I never ever, because, you know, I'm really lucky. It was my hobby turned into my job, but it's still my hobby. Yeah. It's still the thing that I love. It's the, you know, I think about music. I think not only about music, but sound. If I'm walking the dog in the woods, I'm thinking about the sounds and, you know, and the interaction of the leaves, you know, wind in the leaves and the water and all that kind of stuff and all of that. It's a world of sound for me, so I can never switch off to that.
Right. I wonder if that'll work in a song.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, I've done it. I've done it. I've had me walking through leaves, and that became the rhythm of the track. And you know, it's all, because for me, it's all part and parcel of that. It's just, you know, it's part of the story, part of textures.
That is the beauty of it for me as well in the studio. I think, like you say, just creating weird sounds and them kind of working. I think
that's why I've got so many weird bits and pieces around, because you just never know that you just something hitting this. I've got a Tibetan violin. I've got no idea what the tune is supposed to be. I've got no idea how to play it. But occasionally, if you just go bling on it, you can kind of sample that and turn it into something else. And I've got a violin that I tried to learn to play, but was so crap at it that it just hangs up on the wall. But I've used it kind of pizzicato stuff and sampled bits, and then used that. Yeah. You know, it's like you say, it's when the studio becomes an instrument.
Yeah, it's like a musical playground, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it is. And if you've got time to do that,
absolutely.
Oh, I love it. I've got the best job in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I probably agree, to be fair. That or a videographer, I think, is quite cool as well.
Yeah, also cool. But as studio producer, we're having to become both, to be honest.
Maybe. Yeah.
People always expect video content as well now, so socials.
I think the thing I most enjoyed about doing Luke's last track was, like, you hear Richard Ashcroft and he's almost got 17 different lead guitar parts going on, and you're thinking, how the hell do you, because it's not they're clearly not recorded on the same guitars, same amps, same everything.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, how the hell do you hear this? And then all of a sudden, like, we did your track and there was probably about 5 or 6 guitar sounds going on at once at the end, and it was just like, one of them's only doing 2 notes, one of them's, and it was just, you hear it all come together and you're like, that's how they do it. It's just...
Yeah. Absolutely. It's like orchestral almost, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You might only have a piccolo playing 2 or 3 notes, but without it, it just wouldn't be the same. Do you know what I mean? And it's building those up.
And there was one guitar on there that was really heavy, and the song's a ballad. And you're thinking, there's no way this sound, like when you're just trying it out, you're thinking, nah, that's too much. And you hear it in the mix, and all of a sudden you're like, that's it.
Yeah, that's the one.
Absolutely. So I suppose we'll move on to the social media side of things, or just artists in today's current climate, I guess, is maybe more of an approach to go at it from. Obviously, you'll see this firsthand, and you work with people, like you say, that just use it for personal use, but artists that are also trying to sort of make something out of the music, but it's not easy, is it?
No, it's really tough, because you've got to be kind of 30% artist, 70% business person now, really. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. You know, some people naively think that, and understandably naively think that, you know, if you just write a good song and you put it out there, then, you know, people will hear it and listen to it, and maybe it'll move somebody or whatever. But I quite often use the analogy of, you can be the greatest French pastry chef in the world. You know, you make these fantastic little cakes and stuff like that, but your shop's in the middle of a desert.
Yeah.
So there's a chance that someone might pass it and go, this is the best eclair I've ever tasted in my life. But the chances of people passing are very, very slim. You've got to find a way of letting people know where you are so they come to you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come easily to a lot of people who just want to write songs. You know,
it can be infuriating, can't it? You spend most of your life just thinking of the actual content rather than the song, and that can be the difficult part.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, you're just gathering all this sort of content to try and push it.
But I've got a theory as well, though, that what a lot of people want to see from artists is not necessarily the content that we put out or they put out. Because yes, it's great, I've got a new single coming out and I've got this and that and the other, but I think what people really want to be is involved in the music. They want to see the behind the scenes. They want to see what it takes, what someone was feeling when they wrote the song, and all the things that are kind of the daily life of being an artist, an emerging artist now, is actually what people want to see. And I think that's the way you get a fan base, not showing them just the things that you could kind of see on a poster. Do you know what I mean? It's stuff that makes listeners and fans feel like you are part of, that they are part of the artist's life, you know, part of that community.
Yeah, it's that fine line as well, isn't it? You know, you look at a lot of artists like Bob Dylan and some of my favourites like Pal and Itty, they don't want to give too much of themselves away, but you kind of have to now, don't you? Because otherwise you're not sort of, like you say, sort of becoming a friend of the fan or whatever, are you? It's really difficult to not give too much away.
Yeah, totally. I mean, sadly, yes. I mean, that's exactly what an artist has to do now. You've got to make friends. Yeah. Basically, you're not making listeners. You've got to make friends. You've got to have, you know, fans, and it's all about that community. You know, and ultimately also, if you're ever going to be picked up by a label, that community is probably more important than the quality of the music. Yeah, yeah. And there will always be a label that will pick lots of different styles of music, but they'll only pick it if you're getting 10,000 monthly listeners. Yeah. And you've done 70% of the work of that listener fan base, because they only want to do the final 30% now. That's all they want to do. They want to take what already has got huge potential, but it's just missing that mass distribution or that mass marketing, and want to take it from there. The days of taking an artist and thinking, oh, they've got 2 or 3 good songs there, you know, we'll push that. That's gone. Yeah. That's well gone now. So an artist has to be able to make engaging enough content that shows them as a person, as an artist, but as a human being, I think, more importantly. Not necessarily saying what you're having for dinner, you know, every day.
Some people do, don't they?
Some people do, yeah. And I don't work with an artist who I have to say to it, I'm really not interested. I said, I've kind of stopped looking at your stuff, looking at your stories now, because I don't care what kind of curry you've just had tonight, or whether, you know, what fitness drink you've just had. It's, you know, so it's finding that fine
it's
line.
the Lewis Capaldi dissecting the takeaway menu kind of. Some people, I think you feel like you've got to choose pretty early what you are as an artist as well. Are you the funny guy that is dissecting the Chinese menu, or are you a little bit more I don't know what the word is.
There's more mystique to you.
Yeah,
or
more
whatever.
mystique. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah,
but again, I think different people will have it differently. Beyonce, we wouldn't necessarily take Beyonce seriously if she was dissecting the Chinese menu, whereas Lewis Capaldi, one of the reasons he appeals to people so much is because he feels tangible. He feels like a real human being. He feels like a bloke who could live next door. Yeah, and I think there's something about that. In all of us, we've got, this 15 minutes of fame, whatever Warhol said. I said, in all of us, we kind of want to feel that we are only, an arm's reach away from fame, fortune, celebrity, or what have you. And so therefore, the more accessible celebrities are, or artists are, the closer we feel as, as fans, as listeners, to that, As I said, I don't know if you know Sugarstone, the band Sugarstone, who recorded in the studio a while back, and I'm good friends with Joe and George particularly, and I've worked with them on and off for many years. But when they started out their live stuff, it was all very, we're on stage and everyone else is out there, and and I said, watching you, you've got to remember that people watching it either want to be you or on the stage with you, and that's it. So you've got to engage them. You've got to draw them in and give them almost that possibility that you can be part of this. Yeah. And the moment they did that, their live act changed. And the only reason I was able to do that is because I was seeing it objectively. They couldn't necessarily see that because it was too close to them. So I think that's what people want.
I think there's two worlds with that. I think you're right. It's almost like Lewis Capaldi. I don't particularly love his music, but you sort of root for him, don't you?
Yeah, totally.
But then you've also got artists that seem so mystical and far away. They're almost like godlike, aren't they? And there's there's that intrigue to it as
well.
well.
We're talking about Sam Fender. I mean, Sam Fender, is a guy who was just telling his story, and that was obviously very attractive then to a lot of young, disenfranchised lads. I mean, Oasis did it, phenomenally well. I'm not an Oasis fan, but they managed to engage a lot of disenfranchised people of that era by seeming accessible, by not being that model, record label band and all that. They showed that you can be. Sex Pistols did it, to an extent in the 70s. Punk certainly did it.
Yeah, there's an element to, I think, the social media. It's like there used to be this mystique about the vinyl, didn't there? Like people who'd go out to get the vinyl and they were so excited about the artwork on the. They'd be so excited about the artwork, what was in the booklet in between. I think now your social media has to grab people the same as that. I think.
Yeah, but our attention spans is really, really short.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If it hasn't grabbed within the first 5 seconds, you haven't grabbed them. Because it's the same as Spotify. It's 60,000 songs a day on new songs on Spotify. When you're going through your Insta feed or TikTok feed, everything, you might be looking at that particular frame, that particular post, but you can see there's something just below it that's already catching your eye. It's kind of going, I wonder what you are then. And before you know it, you're in that scroll. So having engaging content that is going to keep people coming back to your content is really tough. Really, really tough. But as I say, I think you get that from trying to break out the mold. And I mean, I've noticed it with anything we do with the studio. The posts that have got a face on there get way more traction than something that is just like a generic picture or whatever. I think humans relate to humans. And we've seen that tangibly in the numbers, as it were. Not that I'm a big numbers fan, but you notice the difference. You go, oh, of course, that one that's just got me going on it did so much better than that new microphone that I just bought, which I'm really really pleased about. But no one's interested. They want to see human beings. They want to see people like themselves.
I agree. Do you find yourself? I noticed on your Instagram you had like a 4-part checklist to sort of how to prepare yourself for release and stuff like that. Do you find yourself almost being a bit of a counsellor for not just the production side of it, but helping people sort of get a kickstart?
I think it's something that I've done more and more, and it was never intentional. It was never kind of I want to go out there, I want to help people find their way in the music business, but a bit of a mixture of my experience and also having so many different artists with so much different experience and things that have happened to them and blah, blah. You can't help but then kind of share that around. And that's one of the things that I think came with the studio is that for those people who keep coming back, it's almost like a community within itself. And you learn bits and pieces from different people. So, for an example, there was an artist who was signed, and the contract was just dreadful, and she was really unhappy. It was about 3 or 4 months in. She was really, really unhappy. She said, "Would you mind having a look at this contract for me?" Now, I'm not a music contract lawyer by any stretch of the imagination, but even just looking down and going, "Well, that's a typo. That's an error.
Right.
That you can't seriously sign that away. All your work in perpetuity to a record label who are giving you basically sod all and no advance. All those things. But because of that experience, I can then say to other people who have got who are about to get signed, just check those clauses." In that, because I know someone got shafted by that, and that can help. So I think, I'm more than happy to help someone if they come and say, have you got any advice on this, or what do you think the best ways of doing this? I'll share with them what I know, what my experience is, and if I haven't got direct experience, I'll try and see if there's someone else who's been in the studio that might know. Because again, when I started doing music, or when getting into music in the 70s, it was about competition. If you had another band, then you were in competition with the band down the road, because there were only so many gigs, there were only so many record deals that were potentially going to be out there. But now it's not about competition in the same way. It's about community, and I think we're all in it together. We're all in it just to get as much great music out there as possible. And if that person can help that person not get shat on, or find it slightly easier, or not go to bed crying in the pillow because it's all gone pear-shaped for them, when what would have made the massive difference is someone going, "Oh, have you tried doing that or speaking to that person?" And if I can help be a conduit for that or a central hub to that, then happy days.
No, I think it's good. I think some people's gripes in the songwriting scene is that people are just very. I mean, obviously you are going to be like self-focused, but like say your mate releases a song, and people just like for you to take the time to listen to it, even if it's not your music and all that kind of thing. And I think you'd hope people are sort of encouraging of each other and have that songwriting.
But also,
community.
I think it makes business sense as well if you can. If you're an artist and you've got another artist who's doing stuff, even if you're collabing with them, you can join your followers effectively. You're getting double the amount of followers that you had because all you've done is been friendly, or you've commented on something, or you've done a feature on something. Gone in and done a backing vocal line or something on someone else's track. All of a sudden, the people who are listening to your music has suddenly doubled. So I think it makes sense to be that way and to be collaborative, to be part of a community and go, ultimately, none of us really know what we're doing. We're just trying to make some music, you know.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about it. That's what I love about, particularly since starting the studio, the people that we've met and the kind of whole music community and the open mics and, and the gigs that we go to of local artists and the Best of Preston album that we did and all those new people that brought in. It's just a massive community now. And I love it for that. Absolutely. And so we'll go out and if we know someone's playing and we're free, Clay will say, such and such is playing tonight. Let's go and have a couple of drinks and go and watch them.
Yeah, so I remember Lee mentioning the Best of Preston. Could you just talk to us a little bit about that?
So it was the brainchild of Martin Rolly, aka Martin Rollinson, who had the idea of trying to get Lancashire County Council to part fund 10, 12 local artists' time in the studio. So the plan was that basically everyone would get a 4-hour time slot. They'd pay 50 quid. Lancashire County Council will pay 50 quid, and then we'd make up the extra and take on board all the mixing and mastering time for ourselves. We ended up getting 12 artists, and that's how we met Millie, was because she came in to do Time-Wise on that. And so consequently, we got a massive cross-section of artists. Now, I've had people saying, well, it can't be the Best of Preston because my mate Dave wasn't on it and blah, 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 so I couldn't be the best. Of course not. We're never going to be able to get everybody onto it. But what it is, it's a little time capsule, of 2024, effectively, in a moment there. And we might do one again in a couple of years' time, and it'll be a different set of people. Yeah. But just been, confirming that there's some fantastic talent around here, and a lot of people who it's the first time they've ever been in the studio may well be the last time because they're happy just to do an open mic and do songs that they've written themselves and do that, and the studio experience was fun and they've got something on Spotify now and, and that's kind of it. But the music and the songs that came out of that, it's a really good little album. It's a really, really good little album,
Absolutely. Did you have a live performance of the album as well? You had like a night, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a night at Chain House.
Yeah.
Where we basically played the tracks. We kind of interviewed the artists and played the tracks, and they got me to MC it. And I'm not quite sure how I managed to get talked into doing that. It must have been the beer. But it was great again to have all those people and that kind of community of music. It was a really fun night, and it's what I really love about being part of the studio. I love making the music, love doing all that, but at the end of the day, it's people. It's the people that make the music. It's people that make you feel warm and fluffy about the music. It's human beings, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's weird that though, because it seems like when you hear people talking about the music scene years ago and just in Preston on the streets, basically at the grassroots. Original music was just so much more better supported. So you go to these just pubs and there'll be original bands playing their original music. Whereas now we've probably got 3 venues in Preston and the next one's in Blackpool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's a shame. I think it's slightly indicative of how many of us now consume music, that it's become much more wallpaper. It's stuff we have on in the background while we're doing this. Gone are the days where you had to invest in your music because you physically had to turn it over every 15, 20 minutes. Now it can just be on. And so I think people have got so much more used to hearing songs they already know. It's covers. Do you know what I mean? And if for any artist, I'd recommend doing a series of covers because it's a great way to get people to listen to the rest of your catalogue. Do some covers, you'll get your royalty for whatever that is on it. Obviously, you won't get any publishing rights on it, but you'll get some royalty rights on it. But do an EP of covers or something like that. Again, it shows people what your influences are, the kind of music you like, but even more importantly, it's an easier way of hooking them into your original stuff.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. I know Georgia did that, didn't she?
Yeah.
Was that kind of recommended by yourself, or did she say, I want to do a cover?
No, it's kind of a known thing. I don't know how widely known it is. I know that there's an artist, well, she was a songwriting mentor of mine, Shelley Poole, who was in Alicia's Attic in the 80s. They were really a sister act in the 80s, and they were huge, on Top of the Pops, #1 kind of stuff. And Shelley did an album, once that kind of Alicia's Attic thing fizzled out and she was just doing stuff on her own, she and her sister ended up doing an album of Christmas songs, covers of Christmas songs. They each get around 10 grand a year from that album of Christmas songs. Nice. And she said that's pays for Christmas.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But what it's meant is that people listen to that and go, oh, what else she's been doing? Yeah. And then so Red Sky July, which is a kind of band at the moment, now the numbers for them have just gone up and up and up. So I think for anyone doing a cover or two is a great way of getting people, because people will take a chance on something they think they know, even if it's a completely different version. They'll take a chance on it. Adele was the Dylan track. Adele's big
"Make You Feel My Love."
"Make You Feel My Love." Nobody realises that. Well, very few people realise that wasn't her song. Right, it was a cover. It was a Bob Dylan song.
Oh, wow.
But if you search "Make You Feel My Love" on Spotify, Adele's the one that comes up at the top, and Dylan's like fourth.
Same with All Along the Watchtower,
of course,
Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Do you know what I mean? And they're all like, the original artist is 4 or 5 down. So, but consequently, you go in and you hear that from Adele because people might have known it, but then you end up listening to the other stuff that she's got on there, and it's a great way of getting in, and you don't have to write it.
No,
it's like the job done.
I suppose the difficulty is then arranging it so it's it's your style, isn't it? And it's getting that right, and it's a different challenge, I guess. But
I think if you are practiced enough in doing your style, or you're playing, and particularly if you're playing live and you've got a style, just do it like that. Do it in the style bit. If unless you're Bowen, you're reinventing yourself every 2 or 3 years. Your style should come as a natural element, because the style just comes from what do I feel this song needs. Because it's taste, isn't it? Style is what your taste is. And I think if you just do a song that because you really like the song, do it because it means something to you. Just do it in your kind of style, your vein. You'll know exactly what to do with it. Pop it out there. Yeah. Again, something you can be still proud of as part of your catalogue, not something you think, oh Christ, I did the Birdie song because I thought it'd be popular. Something you can be proud of, and if you had to put it on an album, you'd be happy to put it on an album.
Yeah.
All the greatest artists have always done cover versions to start with, or most of them have done cover versions within. They might do 3-4 covers within a 10-track album.
Yeah, I think people would benefit from that tip, because it seems obvious, but I think some people really like to separate themselves from covers when they're doing originals, don't they? So to actually
the other bonus to it, because one of the big things nowadays is sync, so getting your music onto TV and film, because that's where the money really is.
Yeah.
As an example, another songwriter mentor, Paddy Byrne, who co-wrote Paloma Faith's first 2 albums, does a lot of stuff with Tom Odell. He was talking about songwriting. He said, we write these songs and we get so excited, there's a massive build-up, and we put them out. And then sod all. Do you know what I mean? It's like the dust settles. And he said that can be really disheartening. He said, but just don't worry about it. Move on to the next one. He said, that happened to me a few years ago. I wrote this song. I was really proud of it. I loved it. It went out there and it maybe had a few thousand listens, and that was it. And it kind of fizzled out. And I went, oh, sorry. Okay, move on to the next. About a year later, he got a royalty statement through for 20 grand because it had been picked up and it was playing in a movie on a radio in a cafe.
Right.
And he got 20 grand for that song. Nice. So you never know.
No.
So the thing with covers is that, first of all, if the music supervisor on the TV show or the film really likes a song, but it's going to cost a fortune to get that version of it, then what they'll start to do is look for cover versions of it from emerging artists or lesser known artists that they know they can get it for a fraction of the cost. But if we as viewers hear the song, we go, oh, I know that song. Oh, that's a cool version of it. I mean, John Lewis does it all the time. Every Christmas, John Lewis it's the cover version of something of a song that we all know, done in a different way.
But would you know the artist necessarily?
But would you know? Doesn't matter.
No, I'm not saying it does. I'm just saying a
lot of them have gone on to be famous. I mean, Lily Allen obviously was the main one.
Yeah.
And she probably had a bit of a following anyway.
Yeah,
but
totally.
There's been a couple come off the back of that.
Mad World. I mean, they did Mad World, that really chilled, dark version of Mad World.
That was it David Gray or somebody like that?
No, I've forgotten. It was a couple of people, wasn't it? Yeah. I've forgotten what they called. But that was enormous, absolutely enormous. And it was being used on sync and TV for, so much. And they'll have made a lot of money out of that, even though they don't get publishing rights because they didn't write it. They get the mechanical rights because they get the master rights because they recorded it.
Speaking of rights, what would you say to artists like, we always get it, PRS and PPL. Is that sort of still a thing anymore?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it's the thing that a lot of people forget about neglect, because you think that you sign up to DistroKid and it's kind of done for you, I mean, they're going to sort out all the royalties. They will only do a part of the royalty. So I would recommend anyone, particularly if you're under 25, because to sign up for PRS lifetime is only 35 quid. After that, it's 100 it's 100 quid after that. PPL is free. So for PRS, that's if you've written a song, and if you perform on your own songs live, sign up for PRS because you can make money every time you play that song live. I was talking about Martin Rowley, who did the Best of Preston. He's a songwriter and he does his own thing and he does open mics, and every open mic he'll play 2 of his own songs at the open mic because he can put it down on his PRS, and each one is like 3 or 4 quid a pop.
Oh, okay.
So if you're playing a few songs in your own set, you can make money out of that if it's a PRS registered venue, which it should be. And you've got the time to register what was on your set list, and you write it down. You can make some money out of it. PPL, if you are anything to do with what you hear on a record, on a track, PPL, put it down. If you played, are you saying you're playing guitar? If you played tambourine on Luke's track, put it down, because eventually there's a pot that goes out to the people who did anything that you can hear on the track. And you get, I mean, it's pennies, but it costs nothing to sign up for PPL. It's a bit of a ball ache to keep putting all the information in, but you never know what's going to happen with that. And if suddenly someone picks that up and it's on the next Stranger Things, do you know what I mean? You could be sitting on a tidy little packet then.
And if you weren't signed up for PRS and it was playing Stranger Things, you wouldn't
get it.
PPL,
you can get backdated. I think it's 6 years. But PRS you can't.
Right.
So if your song gets played on the radio and everything, get signed up for PRS and PPL. Yeah, PRS obviously if you're the songwriter, PPL if you had anything to do with what is physically heard on the track.
Performance. What is it?
Performing Rights Society.
Performing Rights Society.
And the polyphonographic. I can't remember what PPL. Yeah. And then there's MCPS, which is the mechanical rights.
I think they've merged with PRS.
Yeah,
now,
so PRS for music now covers PRS and MCPS. And MCPS is much more about physical copies, about vinyl and CDs and stuff like that. But also weirdly also covers a bit of streaming. It's a minefield. It's an absolute minefield.
It's funny how your DistroKids don't shout that from the rooftops, though, isn't it?
No, they don't. But then, they only, as I say, they only really deal with the streams side of it and the songwriting side of it. You need to get something on them. If you've spent money and if you are an artist who's put anything to do with the physical sound of that record, it was Ed Sheeran actually was. Hadn't realised that he'd not put down himself on that one as a backing singer, and he suddenly got shed loads of more money because he's also down as a backing singer as well as the lead vocalist.
I see, yeah. So okay. So when you're listing all your credits on your distros,
put down.
I do put you as lead guitar normally.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I'm working with an artist and I play bass, or I don't charge any extra for anything I play on it, and I might not have a royalty split if I'm not like producing in that sense, or I'm not co-writing with them. But on my PPL, I'll always put down if I played the bass and I played the piano, because you never know, you might just get a little split of something.
Yeah. I remember Millicent saying, but she was on a different distributor. She said she submits her set list, like you were saying, and gets a. She said it was a couple of pence, but she wasn't on DistroKid. She was on something else beginning with C. I can't remember the name. Was it
CD Baby?
Centurion or
she's with
not C, weren't CD.
Centrica.
It's Centric, something like that. Yeah. But no, it's interesting, because I haven't really gone into as much depth as that, and I think a lot of people probably don't as well. I think that at a surface level, they'll just see what they've got on DistroKid immediately from streams, YouTube, Spotify, and all that, and it's not a lot usually, is it?
Yeah, but I think that the moment you put something onto Spotify, you should be thinking about PPL and PRS, because as I say, you never know if yours is the next song that's going to be playing out of that radio in that cafe. And if they can't find you, they don't know where to send that PRS check to, or that PPL check to.
I know PRS, if on gigs, you can backdate it up to, I think it was about 3 months. I think.
Yeah, it's not very much of PRS. I mean, particularly if you're not registered, you can't backdate anything before your data registration.
Right.
You've got a certain amount of time. Once you are registered, you've got a certain amount of time to be able to backdate it from there. But, like I say, if you're under 25, it's 35 quid. That's it, lifetime. If you're over 25, it's 100 quid. Just do it. Because as I say, if you're gigging and you're playing your own songs once or twice a week, that 25 or 100 quid will pay itself off really quickly.
Yeah.
I
suppose you could just write down that you have sang it as well. No one would never know.
Yeah. Well, there is that. There is that.
Yeah, I sang it 5 times today in my bedroom. I think that's interesting. I think a lot of people would.
I've only had it once where PRS have been at the venue, and I was at Fatbird in Wigan once, and they were literally asking like, "Oh, I got this one from this set. I got this one from this set. What song was that?" And then afterwards, the bar manager went, "Oh, I forgot to tell you that PRS were coming. You could have played some of your own songs." I was like,
yeah. Well, I did. They're not going to remember, are they?
No.
I should have just told them I played all of them with the Fine By songs, but yeah.
I mean, PRS is a bit like speed cameras. You never quite know, if there's anything in there anyway. So,
yeah, that's true. Right, I guess just as we start to wrap this episode up, unless there's anything we've missed, and you don't have to answer this question, but it's mainly when you're finished doing your producing, what's maybe the one moment you'll look back on as like, wow, that was it for me. It might have been working with an artist that's gone on to do massive things. It might be completely opposite. It might have just been a moment where something's clicked, and it's what do you think the standout moment for you would be?
That's a really, really tough question. I guess the standout, it might sound a bit wishy-washy, but I think the standout moment would be the moment of deciding to start the studio.
Yeah.
Again, it was a massive risk at the time, at a time when there was, my diary for 2 years had just literally in the space of a month had just emptied because of COVID. And having a studio that to take it up to from where it was, and it was functional, it did all the stuff, but then to take it up to a place that I could confidently make commercial was a point when, and Claire just said to me, it's that old line from, is it Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. And that moment of just going, I'm going to go for this now. I don't know why, but I think there's that phrase that if you're starting again, start it by doing something you love. And then you're never really going to fail at it. And I think that moment of everything I'd done, and it was the point that I kind of come full circle. I started out doing everything I did, and I've had an incredible career, and I've been all around the world. I've worked with some incredible world-renowned artists in my time. But to have that space, to have that studio, and work with the artists that I get to work with now, who entrust me with their music and their songwriting, is probably the moment. Absolutely. I think,
That's a good answer.
How do you think AI is going to affect your job now and like artists like yourselves?
It's the big question at the moment, isn't it? I think there is an inevitability to AI. It's not going anywhere. It's the same, I'm old enough to remember when the synth arrived. And there were orchestral players going, this is going to destroy our industry and blah, blah, this, that, the other, it's never going to be right, never going to be the same. And then the synth came along, and we can't imagine not having synths now. AI is here to stay, but it's like any tool, it's not what it is, it's how you use it. Now, I know some people who have released stuff that is pretty much practically fully AI, but you can tell it's AI. And of course, that's going to become more blurred as we go along. But also I know artists who really struggle musically and melodically to get their ideas down, and who've used AI as a sketchbook to get an idea and some melody ideas, and then they'll bring it into me and go, this is kind of where I want to get to, or something in this style. And so that I'll use that then as a starting point, and then you'll go, okay, well, something about the guitar pattern. Okay, she quite likes that guitar pattern, or he quite likes that. And so I'll start with that. What we end up with is nothing like the AI version, but it was a good starting point. It's the same way as that ChatGPT isn't going to write your entire essay, but maybe it is. but it might be a launch point for you to get started from, because as I say, it's not going anywhere. I also think it's brilliant if you're not a singer but you want to do demos. If you're a songwriter and producer but you're not a vocalist, you can sing really badly into a mic, and then you can put it through an AI voice generator and get a really good representation of a voice that then you can pitch to an artist and go, this is the song, and again, that's a hell of a lot cheaper than spending 200 quid on getting a session singer in, because no one has 200 quid at that point if they're pitching a song.
No, that's true. That's very true.
So as I say, with any tool, you can use it. It's like fire, isn't it? You can use it to cook, keep yourself warm, or cook your food, or you can use it to burn someone's house down. I'd recommend the former rather than the latter use of it. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's a tool like anything else. Use it responsibly, because again, it's very easy to just go, I'll get AI to do that, I'll get AI to do that, but before you know it, the robots will be doing everything, and you'll be sitting there wondering how we got there.
You mentioned you were going to Nashville. Can you talk more about what you're doing out there?
So it's a bit of a pinch me moment, really. So I work with an artist, B Smith, now shortened to B, a UK country artist. And she's been nominated at the Josie Music Awards at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville for Fans' Choice, Female of the Year, and Song of the Year, Contemporary Pop, and for a song that we wrote together. So we are going to Nashville a week on Friday. Front row and second row seats. I couldn't get a seat extra for some stupid reason. To the Grand Ole Opry for the award ceremony. For that, followed by playing at the Bluebird Cafe, the world-renowned Bluebird Cafe, the following night.
Brilliant.
So that's kind of a bit of a massive pinch me moment. We won the ISA Award for Female Songwriter of the Year from another song we wrote together a few weeks ago in Atlanta, Georgia. I wasn't out there, but B was out there. So it's kind of, again, I keep saying it's a pinch me moment. First of all, I'm not quite sure I became a country songwriter and a country producer. I wasn't expecting that. But to have those accolades already for two of the songs, but it kind of goes particularly Little Girl's Heart, which was a song when B and I first met and we had our first kind of conversations about, songwriting and what she wanted to do. She was very adamant. She said, I don't want to write songs about being on the back of a truck drinking beer. That's not me. She said, I'm a 40-year-old mother, mother of one. I'm not going to get away with that. That's not the story I want to tell. So she told a story about her being a 6-year-old, her estranged dad promising to come and pick her up on her birthday, take her somewhere, and not showing up. And so we wrote a really authentic song about that. And it was on rotation in the States, and it just did really well because I think its honesty and authenticity touched people. So that's the one that won the ISA Award for Female Songwriter of the Year. And she's got a very nice glass trophy thing. I got a photograph of it, but she gets the trophy. And then the Josies, was gobsmacking. So we knew that she'd been nominated for Fans' Choice and Female of the Year. And I was joking to her in a session. I just said, listen, if the song gets nominated, I'll be next to you on the plane. That's it. And I got a message, I got a phone message from a couple of weeks later saying, "Have you read your WhatsApp?" No. Just have a look at your WhatsApp and call me back. So I looked at it and she said, "We're going to Nashville, baby." It's like nominated Song of the Year, Contemporary Country. So yeah, we fly a week on Friday.
That's brilliant, yeah.
Which is going to be a bit awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to not buy any cowboy boots. I'm not going that stereotypical kind of country route. But yeah, it'll be, I mean, we're up against some incredible names and, and music and stuff like that. So I'm under no illusion.
But
just to be in there, just to be in that. Yeah. And we're doing a networking thing the day before, but then the Bluebird, which is kind of like one of the Nirvanas, the meccas of country artists. Everyone's played there, from Taylor Swift, Garth Brooks, Dolly Parton. They've all played the Bluebird. Nice. And again, it's about as big as this.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, cool. So I guess that's a segue into maybe anybody that's looking to become a producer. What would be your advice? And I suppose it can take you to a lot of places as well, can't it?
Yeah.
If you could do it all again, what have you learned, I guess?
If I could do it all again, find people whose music you really love and see how you can help them.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm still doing, and we're still doing. And Millie's a great example of that. Millie came in to do Time Wise as part of Best of Preston, and I loved that song. And then we went to an open mic and saw her do an open mic thing. It was a little 3-hander open mic, and both Claire and I just looked and said, "We've got that's. I want to hear that EP. Mm. I want to hear that. And if the only way we can do it is by sponsoring that, then we'll do that." Yeah. So we're sponsoring the EP, but I would say if you're a starting out producer, find 2 or 3 artists that aren't already recording, and just get yourself a little setup. It doesn't need to be. You need a microphone and a little interface and a computer, and that's it, and a lot of passion, and just try and get them recorded and captured, because few people are going to say no to that. Particularly if you're as excited about the music as they are. Start that, and then from that, learn your taste and learn your style. People don't employ you as a producer for the gear you've got, for the hits you've had or whatever, but people employ you for your taste.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of the biggest producers keep getting keep getting work, because they've got a defined style.
Yeah.
That style might evolve, but you just know that's the Jack Antonoff,
you know what you're getting from them, basically.
You kind of know what you're getting from them, and so I would say that's really important. And after that, it's just doing your 10,000 hours. It's just keeping on doing it, refining your ear, speeding up so that you're giving the artist the most value for money, not necessarily in pounds and pence, but in time. Because the more time the artist is making music and the less time you're fiddling with knobs, the better. So that would be my advice to do it.
Super. I mean, that's a great answer, to be fair. Where can we find you? I know, and I find your playlist on Spotify quite helpful, because I listen to all your artists on there. I was doing that today as well. So I think
you're the person. You're the person who listens to it.
I'm the only person.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I realised.
It's my mum and you.
That's how I realised how many guests on the podcast have worked with you as well. There's Matt, there's Millicent, there's just George, there's Lee,
John Rayner.
Yeah. He's becoming a regular now.
He's everywhere, John Rayner.
Yeah. He's a great drummer.
Could you just clear up Lee Richards as well, saying that Oasis are better than the Beatles? Can't be having that.
That's something that Lee and I will need to sort out one day.
In the car park.
And it may involve baseball bats. Yeah. Actually, I'm not sure I want to take on Lee with the baseball bat, to be fair. Maybe I'll have to concede with that one. But
another piece of advice to young producers: pick your battles.
Absolutely. Needless to say, he's wrong.
Right. I agree. I think he was taking a piss, to be fair.
Yeah.
It was. So where can we find you on all the platforms, and how do people book in with you as well?
Yeah. So website at 3507.co.uk, on all the socials at 3507 Studio. We're on Facebook, Insta. There's a phone number as well on the website. We love to chat to people, because sometimes it's hard to express what you want to do, or your project, or your vision for a project, in an email or in a text. Give us a call. If you don't get me, you'll get Claire, and we kind of come as a package. So it's a supportive, really relaxed environment. we just try and create a place that people can make their best music without having to worry about being judged or whatever, and we'll give as much support as we possibly can to get that out.
Absolutely. I've noticed Claire has just started dipping into our world a bit as well, hasn't she?
She started singing.
Yeah, how's that going?
Doing lots. Yeah, really well.
Yeah,
really well. It's kind of getting bigger and bigger. Yeah. Again, it's one of those things I was saying before about when you starting again, start with something you love. I mean, Claire and I met because we ended up round at a friend's house and we started singing, and I just thought, she's awesome, you know. But for whatever reason, she did bits of singing and she's done bits and pieces for me. But when she was looking at changing kind of careers and stuff like that, I just said, well, sing. Yeah. And we just had someone in the studio who was doing it, who was kind of doing the circuit. It was all right, you know, all right. But I thought, Claire's so much better. If she can make a living out of doing that, then, you know, why not do it? Yeah. And as I say to so many people, it's just singing. It's just doing something you love. And like anything, you'll learn to get better at it because you learn to, you know, to be able to read the crowd and you'll be able to learn to do that. But at the end of the day, it's opening your mouth and singing songs you love.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well, most songs
better
you love.
That? Yeah, most songs you'll learn to hate a few.
Yeah, of course.
No, that's great.
The Oasis tracks.
Oh, I play all the B-side Oasis tracks now. I like
Mr. Brightside or something like that.
Yeah, Mr. Brightside. That's my karaoke song. That one.
It's a great tune, but it does. I need a break from it.
Dakota. So that's another good one. That's another one. But we did a lot of her tracks. We've done as chilled versions as well. So when she's doing, you know, like wine bars and stuff like that, we've got chilled acoustic versions.
So she'll record in the studio.
Yeah, so we've got like 30 odd tracks that are just like chilled acoustic-y kind of vibes with bits of backing vocal and stuff like that on it.
Brilliant. Is there anything you'd like to add, Nick? Or are you happy with the way it's gone today?
No, very happy.
Very happy. Good stuff.
Very happy. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Hope we can get you on in the future as well and see what you've been up to, especially after the Nashville trip as well. So all the best, mate, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, and all the best for your podcast.
Coming on.
Cheers. Bye bye.